June 30, 2026. Hamden, Ohio. Officers arrived at a quiet property in rural Vinton County for what seemed like a routine task, serving an arrest warrant related to misdemeanor public indecency allegations against 36-year-old Gary Siders Jr. But within minutes, that routine visit would uncover one of the most disturbing child neglect investigations in recent American history. As deputies stepped inside the home, the smell hit them almost immediately. Garbage covered the floors. Rotting food lay scattered throughout the house. Human waste was reportedly present in multiple areas. The deeper investigators went, the more shocking the scene became. Then they found the children. 16 children, ranging in age from just 17 months old to 18 years old. Many appeared filthy. Some struggled to communicate. Several reportedly made sounds instead of speaking. Authorities would later describe some of the children as appearing almost feral, a phrase that quickly spread across national headlines.
This probably was the worst scene that I've been in as far as the deplorable conditions.
What deputies believed would be a simple arrest had transformed into a massive rescue operation. And the questions were only beginning. How could 16 children live like this without anyone stopping it? How had an entire family remained hidden from public view for so many years? And what secrets were still buried inside the property that neighbors barely noticed? This is the story of the Ohio House of Horrors. A house few people paid attention to. Hamden is a small village in southeastern Ohio. It's the kind of place where neighbors often recognize one another, traffic is light, and major crimes rarely dominate national news. The Siders family's property sat quietly among trees and overgrown vegetation, giving it an isolated appearance from the road. To outsiders, it may have looked neglected, but almost no one imagined what investigators would eventually discover inside. Authorities now believe the family had lived increasingly isolated from society for years. According to investigators, many of the children had little meaningful contact with the outside world. Some reportedly showed significant developmental delays. Others appeared unfamiliar with normal social interaction. The oldest child, an 18-year-old young woman, allegedly could not write or spell her own name, according to Vinton County Sheriff Ryan Kane. For many Americans, that revelation was almost impossible to comprehend. Investigators believe the answer may lie in years of prolonged neglect. The adults inside the home. Police arrested 4 members of the same family. At the center of the investigation was Gary Siders Jr., 36, the children's biological father and the man deputies had originally come to arrest. Also taken into custody was Elizabeth Siders, 33, the children's biological mother. Joining them were Gary's parents, Gary Siders Sr., 73, and Christina Siders, 66. Authorities allege all 4 adults played a role in allowing the children to remain in dangerous living conditions. Each was charged with 16 felony counts of child endangerment, 1 count for each child rescued from the property. All 4 have pleaded not guilty. Their attorneys argue that many public descriptions of the home have been exaggerated and insist the defendants deserve the opportunity to challenge the allegations in court. As the legal battle unfolds, prosecutors continue gathering evidence while preparing the case for presentation to a grand jury. But the criminal charges were only one part of the story. Investigators were about to uncover troubling details suggesting the warning signs may have existed long before June 30th. The biggest question was no longer what deputies found inside the house. It was whether this tragedy could have been prevented years earlier. As investigators pieced together what happened inside the Siders' home, they discovered something even more disturbing than the conditions themselves. There had been warning signs. One of the earliest red flags appeared in 2021, when a school district in neighboring Gallia County filed a truancy complaint involving 6 of the Siders children. The children had stopped attending school. Ordinarily, a truancy case can trigger home visits, welfare checks, and ongoing monitoring. But according to public records, the case was eventually closed after officials were unable to locate the family. Then the trail went cold. The children disappeared from the education system. Life inside the home continued. Looking back, many people now wonder whether that was the moment everything could have changed. If authorities had located the family then, could years of alleged neglect have been prevented? That question still hangs over the investigation. As reporters dug deeper into the family's history, another revelation emerged. Court records showed that Elizabeth Siders was just 15 years old when she married 18-year-old Gary Siders Jr. in 2008. Just 2 months later, she gave birth to their first child. Over the next 18 years, the family grew until there were 16 children living under one roof. Today, Elizabeth stands charged alongside her husband, father-in-law, and mother-in-law with 16 felony counts of child endangerment. But her role has become one of the most debated aspects of the case. Her attorneys argue that Elizabeth may herself have been the victim of years of control and manipulation inside the family. Prosecutors, however, continue to pursue criminal charges against all 4 adults, and no court has accepted that argument as a legal defense. Those questions may ultimately be answered in court. Ironically, investigators weren't even searching for abused children when they arrived at the property. They were there because of Gary Siders Jr. Only weeks earlier, he had been charged with 4 separate misdemeanor counts of public indecency, allegedly exposing himself in public on 4 occasions over a 9-day period. Authorities have not alleged that those incidents were directly connected to the child endangerment case, but they were the reason deputies walked onto the property on June 30th. Had those charges never been filed, investigators might not have entered the home that day. Inside, officers began documenting what they described as some of the worst living conditions they had ever encountered. Crime scene photographs later released to the public showed rooms overflowing with garbage, broken furniture, dirty clothing, and rotting debris. Sheriff Ryan Kane did not hide his reaction. He said livestock had been kept in better conditions than the children. He also alleged that parts of the house had become so unsafe the children were literally about to fall through the floor. Ohio Attorney General Dave Yost described the case as something investigators rarely encounter in the United States. The oldest child, an 18-year-old young woman, allegedly could not write or spell her own name. But not every claim has gone unchallenged. Elizabeth Siders' attorney has argued that some descriptions of the home have been exaggerated. He disputes the allegation that all 16 children were confined to a single 12 by 12-foot room and says some of the older children had access to cell phones, social media, and interaction with people outside the home. Those competing accounts will almost certainly be examined as the criminal case moves forward. What is not disputed is that all 16 children were removed from the property and placed into protective state custody. Several required immediate medical attention. 7 children were transported to hospitals. 2 were flown by medical helicopter to trauma centers. 1 child was reported to be in critical condition. Doctors immediately began evaluating the children for malnutrition, developmental delays, physical health concerns and psychological trauma. For many of them, it was the beginning of an entirely new life. Meanwhile, the legal case quickly intensified. Gary Siders Jr., Elizabeth Siders, Gary Siders Sr., and Christina Siders each pleaded not guilty to the charges against them. They later waived their preliminary hearings, allowing the case to move directly toward a grand jury. A special prosecutor was appointed, and judges approved gag orders limiting what attorneys and officials could publicly discuss, citing concerns about protecting the integrity of future court proceedings. Even now, investigators continue reviewing evidence while trying to determine exactly how long the children lived under these conditions and whether additional criminal charges may be appropriate. Beyond the courtroom, however, this case has forced many people to confront an even larger question. How can 16 children disappear from society in modern America without someone sounding the alarm? Was it a failure of the education system, a breakdown in child welfare, or did the family's isolation simply allow years of suffering to remain hidden behind closed doors? Those questions may take months or even years to answer. But for 16 children, June 30th, 2026, marked the day everything changed. And while the courts will ultimately decide the criminal responsibility of the 4 adults, the story has already become a powerful reminder that sometimes the most horrifying cases are not uncovered through major investigations. They're discovered only because someone knocked on the wrong door for an entirely different reason. If you found this documentary informative, consider subscribing for more in-depth true crime investigations. And let me know in the comments, do you believe the warning signs in this case were missed, or were they ignored?